Welcome back. We continue with our programming this morning, of course, AM Live, looking at what is happening on the leadership front. Today, we turn our focus on how the mighty fall. And this, as I said, is drawn as an inspiration from the book by Jim Collins, How the Mighty Fall. And of course, we want to continue with our speakers who will be on the lectern to give us their sentiments on how the mighty fall, right? Are you caught up with the hubris of success, that you're too big for yourself, that you don't see the telltale signs of decline? And how can you, once you've arrived at the apex of success, stay at the top? What are the modalities, right? And of course, looking at also big companies. We talk of Enron, we talk of Kodak, which missed also the digital disruption. We talk of so many companies here in the country as well. Nakumatt has gone down the tubes. Why do the mighty fall, right? And that is what Dr. Cesar Muangi is going to be taking us through this morning as well. Remember also, you can chime in. You can hit us on Twitter. AM Live NTV is a Twitter handle. AM Live NTV is a profile name on Facebook, and 20505 is our SMS portal. And just a tender reminder to, of course, our panelists. I have Mabel with me. This is just to also make sure that we keep time. We have 5 minutes, all of you. And remember also to remove your mic and just put it at the back of your seat as you walk to the lectern as well. So Dr. Cesar is up on the lectern to talk to us this morning. He is currently the founding director of the Center for Personal Leadership, where he has been involved in designing and delivering people and organizations or organizational improvement initiatives, and also an entrepreneur in the solar energy sector. Prior to this, he worked as a managing director of Sassini Limited, a public listed agribusiness. He is a visiting lecturer at the leadership and a leadership coach at the Strathmore Business School. He regularly lecture and facilitate workshops in issues related to ethical leadership, corporate governance, change management, and people effectiveness. He has a PhD in organizational performance and change management from the University of Johannesburg and an MBA from the Wits Business School in Johannesburg. Sir, you've got 5 minutes beginning now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning, Kenya. What a question. How the mighty fall. What a topic. And as I thought about this topic, I asked myself, why is this topic so important? And sadly, I recalled that in this country, we have had spectacular failures of organizations which we thought had a fantastic market opportunity, organizations which many investors betted their hard-earned money on, but those organizations collapsed. Organizations where individuals like myself and probably many of you had put in your hard-earned money, especially in the banking sector, and we had spectacular failures because we did not expect the failures. We trusted them and they let us down. And in the process, a lot of suffering took place. And therefore, it's an important question, my dear friends. As I thought about it, I also reflected on my own life and career journey, and I always asked myself, how can I make sure that whatever I do is enduring and will succeed? And there are 4 points which I think I want to summarize my own reflections on this particular issue of how the mighty fall. And it will not be fair for me to talk about how the mighty fall if I do not even suggest how the mighty should avoid falling. So I want to suggest the 4 points. The first point that I have reflected over the years is that the mighty often fall because they are too impatient and sometimes too fickle-minded, simple-minded in the quest for greatness. Greatness is a long process. In fact, the great late Nelson Mandela, a great hero, a man who all of us can say was indeed great and left a huge legacy in this world, wrote a beautiful book called A Long Walk to Freedom. A long walk requires great patience. And for those of you who love the beautiful activity of hiking and mountain climbing like I do, you know how difficult it is to climb a mountain like Kilimanjaro, Mount Kenya. It takes you 5, 6, 7 days. And you require patience on that journey. But if you rush up that mountain, there's no way you're going to make it to the top. And you're going to somehow on the way get sick, perhaps. So one of the biggest challenges, why the great fall, is the issue of impatience. They want to get there yesterday, faster, and win at all costs as soon as possible. And I'm saying this because I've seen it, and many of the people who have collapsed really wanted to make it big in business very quickly. And the antidote for this, of course, naturally, those who succeed in the long run usually are steady and enduring. They go in a steady pace, in an enduring pace. One of the people who comes to mind is Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett started investing at the age of 11. He's now probably in his 80s, 70, 80 years later. He's still investing in what he calls penny stocks. You know, the stocks that don't look like they're doing good, tomorrow will do very good. And he's done that over the years, and today he's one of the wealthiest men in the world. He's a man of a long-term vision. He's not an impatient man. The second characteristic, I think, of why the mighty fall is something which is so clear, and I've seen it over the years in my career, in business, in my observation of government and public service, is the issue of covetousness. Covetousness. Coveting what is not yours, coveting what you do not deserve, coveting perhaps for the sake of the appearance of success. That is a lack of self-control, and that has brought the downfall of many. Beautiful story is told in the Bible, which many of you probably read, about a great king called David who coveted somebody's wife. And that was his downfall. It's that simple. The same book talks about a great man and very wise man called Solomon. When Solomon grew a little older and he had many wives and concubines, he also fell out of his probably weakness for these ladies. He started erecting false gods for them. He created gods for them, and that was his downfall after many years of wisdom and success. So, in the long run, we have to avoid this risk of covetousness, and we really have to focus on self-control. And if we want to avoid it, we need to appreciate that we should be contented with what we have and what we deserve. And that is the antidote for this particular problem of covetousness, which makes the mighty fall. The third point I want to mention, which I've again noticed over the years, is the issue of excessive pride. Excessive pride individuals. In fact, research has been done where on the issue of emotional intelligence, which says that the higher you go in hierarchy, the higher you go in power, the higher you go in possibilities, the more difficult it is for you to be humble and have emotional intelligence. So you start disregarding others and you think you are the end all and be all, the place where the sun shines from, the one who is the creator of everything. And you start becoming extremely proud. And this I have seen. Without a doubt, this leads to the downfall of many, and it has led to the downfall of many. And the antidote for this, my dear friends, is simple. It's humility. If you look at all the people who are truly great, you name them. Wangari Maathai, extremely humble woman. Mahatma Gandhi, extremely humble man. Nelson Mandela, extremely humble man. But absolutely great, a great legacy these people created, but they were humble. So let's not get confused by this concept of you're great, therefore you're proud. You cannot talk to certain people. You don't deal with certain people. You think you're better than all. And you look down on others because you see others as stepping stones for you to get ahead and not as human beings who you need to respect. And the fourth, my dear friends, why the mighty fall is that the mighty are always seeking glory. The mighty are always seeking glory for themselves. The sun is supposed to shine on them and the glory is supposed to be for them. They never think of the common good, of the bigger picture, of the greater good that they can do for others. And they're always seeking glory. And that, my dear friends, causes them to fall. And the antidote for that, my dear friends, is that instead of seeking glory, perhaps they should be seeking honor. They should be men and women of honor who can stand up at the end of their lives and say, I did my best, not for myself, but for the greater good, for the common good. And that is the honorable thing to do. My dear friends, these are the 4 points I want to share with you from my own journey. And perhaps if we reflect on them, we will see that indeed there is quite some truth. And we pray for this country that we can have great people, generally great people, who focus on seeking honor, who have humility, who are content with what they have, and who indeed are steady and enduring in their approach to life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Caesar Muangi. So are you caught up in that, a prideful bind that he's asking this morning, that maybe you're also too impatient when it comes to waiting for success and writing up on the epics of success as well. How fickle-minded are you, right? Do you stick to one goal and tenaciously pursue that particular goal as well? Excessive pride is one point also he's raised, and seeking glory as well. So we've been driven to some examples as well, and history is replete with these examples of how the mighty fell. Even people who we thought had wisdom like King Solomon, he was touted to be an epitome and epidemic also of success. But how comes also he crumbled to dust when it came to women as well? Thank you, Dr. Caesar Muangi, for that as well. Up next on the podium, we have Dr. Vincent Ogutu, who is a Deputy Vice Chancellor, Planning and Development at Strathmore University. He's a full-time lecturer in organizational behavior, leadership and entrepreneurship at Strathmore University. He has a PhD in organizational management from Rutgers Business School, USA, and also a Master of Science in Financial Economics from the University of London and a BA in Economics from University of Nairobi. And of course, he uses his research in the psychology of meaningful work and social entrepreneurship to help organizations create meaningful environments for their employees. He's passionate about reforming the education system, promoting entrepreneurship, and creating a better future for prisoners. On a personal level, Vincent hopes to inspire people to lead purposeful lives and to use the power of social innovation to solve some of the world's greatest problems. And of course, Vincent, you have 5 minutes beginning now as well. Thank you.
Good morning, dear Kenyans. Thank you for having me on the show again on such an amazing topic, how the mighty have fallen. When I think of that statement, I think of the Old Testament when King David writes this great poem about King Saul and his son Jonathan, because he's just received the news from the battlefield that they have fallen. And so he writes one of the greatest poems you'll ever find in the Bible that says, why have the mighty fallen? You know, how did they die in battle? How did that happen? So that's what King David is asking, and that's what Jim Collins and all of us are asking. How did it happen? How did people who were supposedly the best in the world, who could not fall, how did they fall? How did that happen? And I like learning from history. So I'll give you at least two examples which are very similar, and this is from maritime history. Great ships that sank. So the one that everyone knows is the Titanic. So we're talking 1912, out of the coast of Southampton, heading out to New York, the biggest ship in the world of that time, captained by Edward John Smith, an amazing, outstanding man. And so they set out from Southampton. And he's asked, you know, have you carried enough boats? He says, whatever for. This is the biggest ship in the world. It's indestructible. Nothing can stop us. So already he's making mistakes by making the wrong assumptions that they cannot sink. They are the best and the biggest. And so they hit an iceberg, and most of them died. I think about 700 were rescued, went off in the boats, but they died, 1912. And then flash forward 100 years later, another ship, this is the Concordia, off the coast of Italy, so 2012, 100 years later. And this time you have Francesco Schettino, who's the captain, also an accomplished captain, very, very distinguished in service. He's sitting there having dinner with his girlfriend, and then he decides, let's just get off the path and go close to a village where some friend of mine is, and then we just wave to them. You know, we hit the boom. It's like a big greeting to the village and saying we're here. And that was not in the plan. It was not in the route. But he gives the order. He's told it's not in the route. He says, it's fine, just do it. And he's not even at the bridge captaining the ship. He's having dinner with his girlfriend. And so they hit a rock, they tell him, and he's still having dinner. He still doesn't come. When it gets really bad is when he comes. Because of his expert skill, only 32 people died. More could have died. But he was using his skill too late, a little too late. So these are mistakes of people who thought they were so good, incredible, they couldn't fall, and then they fell. So how did it happen? Those wrong assumptions, that because I'm the best, I'm at the top of my game, we get drunk with our own excellence, and then we think we can never go down. This could happen to you as an individual. It could happen to you as an organization. I mean, for me at Strathmore University, I know people call us the best, we're excellent, etc., but I always try to be a little bit uncomfortable and to tell myself, no, we can still be better. We can still make basic mistakes, and so we have to keep striving for excellence. We should never, never, ever forget that. I was talking with a driver who's called Nicholas Mutua, who knows the Bible like the back of his hand. I was so impressed. And he was giving me all these examples, the same one that Dr. Caesar Muangi gave of King David. Such an excellent man, and then falling from grace because of just some carelessness, because you think you won't be discovered. In fact, we are more afraid of being discovered than of making the mistake itself, as if the evil is in being discovered. We should think about the evil before we do it. We should be ashamed before it actually happens. And so what would I advise people? Humility. In fact, in Jim Collins' other book, Good to Great, he says the difference between companies that are already good and the ones that are great, that will endure, that will not fall, is that their leaders have this eclectic, paradoxical mix between being excellent and at the same time humble. If you have those two qualities, if you can combine them, you jump from being just good to being great. But it takes humility. Remember where you came from. So don't ever forget that we had humble beginnings and that we could fall, that we're human. When you lose sight of that, because you've just reached somewhere, you forget where you came from, you forget you can go right back where you came from. You can fall and be in the dust all over again. And then pay attention to feedback. People will tell you areas in which you've let them down. Don't brush them off because you're so big now you can't countenance any negative feedback. You have to just soften up, step back, listen, and say, yes, you're right. Make apologies. Say you're sorry when you have made a mistake. And then pick yourself up and go. So there are some leaders who do not want to see their mistakes, do not want to listen. And Francesco Schettoni, the captain of the Concordia, he actually abandoned the ship at the worst moment, and the Coast Guard found him when they were rescuing all these boats. And they said, what's your name? He says, Schettino. And who are you? I'm the captain. He says, Captain, you know you should be on the ship. You should be the last man on the ship. Get back on the ship. They refused to rescue him. They sent him back. Go back to the ship. And then he pretended to go back, but never went back. I mean, really despicable. At least Edward John Smith, the captain of the Titanic, he died on the Titanic. He was last seen 7 minutes on the bridge before the ship went down. He admitted his mistake, and he sent everyone off. He had people rescued. He did what he could in the last few minutes, but okay, at least he had that humility. So for those of you who've fallen, it's not the end. Pick yourself up. Life is about the journey. It's not about being perfect and being seen to be perfect all the time. Accept that you're human. You can make mistakes. We'll forgive you because we know you're human. So it's about the journey, about getting up over and over again, and always listening to that feedback. Good luck to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Vincent Ogutu. There, quite a telling, of course, a speech there, and I hope you've also picked up one or two salient points from there. Given the example of the Titanic and the Concordia, what a telling example as well of how we can learn not to be caught up in our pride, that yes, we should always seek guidance and counsel from people who know better. And we shouldn't have wrong assumptions as well, that we are the best in the world, so what can actually bring us down? How is your feedback loop in the company, right? Is it circulating well, or it is just stagnated on one part, which is your end? Where do you also apportion blame sometimes when things are going awry in the company, right? Do you own up like the way Edward Smith did, or are you running away like the captain of Concordia was running away, and he's supposed to be the last man coming out from the ship? That is a rule of thumb, as we know, with the captains who are, of course, making sure that the ship is on course on the ocean. That is a very good speech there from Dr. Vincent Ogutu as well. Up next, now we have Maurice Mashua, who is the Executive Director of Serrano Africa. A great opportunity to work in areas of sustainable development policy and devolution, of course also governance for development and institutional capacity, partnership management and resource mobilization, and the list goes on. And he is here to tell us more about this as well, how the mighty fall. Boris, you've got 5 minutes beginning now.
Thank you. Good morning, Kenya. I think it is a beautiful opportunity to discuss this theme, how the mighty fall. I'm a student of history, and drawing from the various experiences that history has taught us, particularly African history, and the subcomponent of it of African philosophy. They have the idea Ubuntu philosophy. So, as a society, as individuals, as a person, how do you work consistently towards enriching the lived human experience? So the question how the mighty fall, as a person, as an organization, that we support to run, where we operate, a few things stand out, for me. And I think it is important to share that, with the audience. Before I mention my 5 key points, I want to draw from, when you drive on the highway, you get to a speed bump. What happens? A speed bump slows you down. But after that, you have a smooth ride ahead. So that smooth ride is something from which we could learn as a society. That decline is inevitable. But that the question is, what do we do with those moments when we are slowed down? As a country, as an organization, as a university, as an individual. So, in my reflections, why and how the mighty fall, I have 5 basic things. The first is greed and self-significance. The feeling of self-significance. What Jim Collins, identifies as the first, item, hubris. Why is self-significance important? As a CEO, sometimes you feel, the person doing supportive work, who makes your office clean, welcomes, your guests into the office, is not as important. Yet without them, your office would be very ugly. So when we have a sense of greed, and with it, pride and self-significance, we are sure to be headed, towards turbulent waters. Then the other is a tragedy of culture. A culture of unfettered, uncontrolled sense of entitlement within and in organizations. So you have section managers, you have a CEO, you have directors, you have a board that feels a sense of entitlement that is unchecked. You can be sure, if we learn, from moment leading to the 2007, 2008 depression and financial crisis, you had banks that had been around for 158 years. They went under. Why? It was unchecked sense of entitlement. You have, directors getting huge bonuses despite incredible losses. And that then points to something else. You can be sure that explaining away unpalatable data is a sure opportunity to fall. They say, no, it is a short-lived decline. Things will get well. It's a slow, it's a bump. So when we explain away data that is unpalatable to us, what a friend of mine, calls the unthinkable, then we can be sure we are headed for trouble. The other is undisciplined quest for more without regard for humanness. We are constantly pursuing more, and then you ask, what is the purpose of wealth? So, being a student of history and philosophy, I'll then very easily, speak to the country and, identify. Bill Clinton wrote a very good book after he left, the presidency. It's called Back to Work. In there, Clinton says, work is more than making a living. Say that. It's fundamental to human dignity, to our sense of self-worth as useful, independent, free people. So you ask, now this is the 5th point, what is the purpose of wealth? So we pursue wealth without purpose. What is the purpose of wealth? So, if work is more than making a living, it enriches our sense of self-worth, our human dignity. So then it means how we collaborate with each other, how we deliberately enhance pillars about being human, such things as respect, such things as equality, such things as belonging, a sense of belonging. Do I belong, or am I an outcast? So are we at home? So it is an odious task to countenance the idea, how do we belong without justifying? We must be competitive. So Dr. Vincent talks about excellence. So as a society, how do we pursue excellence, be uncomfortable, and yet encourage this sense of purpose and belonging? Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice Mashua there. And of course, Maurice Mashua raises also the concept of Ubuntu, this originating from South Africa as we know it. And that philosophy is all about, yeah, you are because we are, right? If we don't, have a cohesive existence as a nation, then we don't have that enabling environment for you to thrive. I am because you are. We are interconnected in some way. Somewhere, of course, in this society, we are interconnected in terms of driving the economy of this country. If one sector falls, if our politics is not in good place, then that also will cascade also to our living environment. We cannot be, self-confident that, yes, I can open my shop today and no one will come and loot because someone else is not actually, thriving as expected, in terms of giving out a peaceful environment. So, you are because I am. We are because you are. So that is the philosophy of Ubuntu. Greed and self-significance. We want the sense of entitlement. That's a tragedy of a culture that also Maurice raises. And explaining away the unpalatable data, right, is a surefire way of the start of decline of a company, where we try to justify, this is happening because of, this particular segment that went, fudging the accounts. Well, it is very obvious that, yes, something went awry somewhere with the accounts as well. Thank you very much, Maurice. Lastly, we do have Lizzy Madoni, and she has a nice story to tell us this morning, quite an inspiring story. And she runs the Nairobi Institute of Business Studies, that is a NIBS, considered to be among the fastest growing private institutions in the country. A former teacher, Lizzy Madoni still holds the command and authority of an educationist. The idea she conceived in 2000 and experienced on a single-roomed class with 25 students doing secretarial courses have grown to an institution hosting more than 4,000 students studying divergent courses. She attributes the growth of her institution to passion and self-drive. Her dream was to be a teacher like her father. She fulfilled that dream through teaching at State House Girls High School, at Temple College in Nairobi. She was also working as a lecturer teaching business studies. Then she was promoted to deputy principal for 10 years and then the director. She later decided to start her own college. Therefore, she quitted her job. Armed with of course, 4 million shillings, she approached Equity Bank and she secured a loan. And the rest is history. And she's here to tell us more about that particular journey. Lizzy, you also slept on the floor. The floor is yours. So you have a whole floor this morning. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, Kenya. Like you've been told, my name is Lizzy Madoni. First of all, we are looking at how the mighty fall. And I'm talking to the common person now. That person in the village, that person in the estate, that person who is struggling to give their children an education. And because that's what I do every day, and I love my job, and I think mine comes from the heart. I feel very sad when big institutions like NACMAT and many others, maybe where people don't even get to know, fall. Because what happens to the employees? Yeah, you see, so many. The average person is the one who works as a cleaner, the person who packs the goods, person who is guarding at the gate. And those are the people who really lose their future. And to me, I feel bad. Everything I do, every small business I do, like because I'm also in hotel industry, mainly is to create employment. And I feel bad when I see a company closing because I don't think about the company, the bosses, because most of them are still okay. But I feel very, very strongly about the common person who is losing a job and going back to the village. So it's a serious, serious thing, and I would advise Kenyans who are planning to start businesses because there are many opportunities. And they are there for anybody who can. You can start even 5,000. I have started businesses for people who come to my office, give them 5,000. They go and buy me 2 bars. And from there, they are able to start on their own. So anybody can do it. It's not a matter of millions amassing wealth. It's a matter of having a passion for whatever you are doing. Don't do anything that everybody else is doing because you will not succeed. I will go now zero down to education. And I want you to think about education as the most important gift we can give to our children. So when you start an institution, with my own experiences, I never look at profits. I always look at what I'm giving this person who is coming from a village, who is coming from very far away to come and get quality education so that they can sustain their jobs when they get one. And these are you have seen many colleges are closing down. There are some colleges which are as old as when I was in Temple College, which is 20 years ago, 18 years ago. And they are still there with 200 students, and they have maintained that. They don't grow. They are just there because maybe the person, the owner of the business is comfortable with the little they are getting. But I can tell you, in education, we have so many students. And if you want to make it in this area, you can, on condition that you are not there, you're not going there for business, but you are going there to give back to society, because everything I do is giving back to society. And that's why NIBS has no way it's gonna fail, because I make sure that everybody who is there, members of staff, vendors, everybody is somebody who is working so hard to be able to get to feed the family. Now, the institutions that fail is because they are based on profit making. They do things that are not constitutional, and they go issue out certificates even after 9 months, and then somebody has a diploma. There's nobody who can attain a diploma in 9 months. It is impossible, and people should try to understand what is required when they take their kids to school. When is a child supposed to graduate? I normally share this information even with my competitors. Making business is not just advertising, marketing heavily, and lying. Making business is what you do on the ground. And that way you will be able to sustain your institution, because you are giving what the student requires. It's an expensive thing. I've said that you don't have to look for profit. First of all, look for quality, and profits will come automatically. It is automatic. You don't have to go to do shortcuts, because people these days are sensitized. People are educated. Even the common one back in the remote village, they have radios, they have TVs, they listen to their leaders. When Matiang'i comes and talks to the people, he explains. When the Commission for University Education is talking to people, telling them, don't be cheated in doing this, don't be cheated there. People should listen to their leaders, not just to the people who are now managing those institutions. So the colleges and all private universities, which are also very many, which have opened doors, just because there are thousands and thousands of students, they should follow rules and regulations. They can have maybe 50 students, because some of them have 100, and still give them quality, and their universities will prosper. So for me, I believe in taking up a business whereby your passion is, a business where you know you don't want to fail because you hurt people, you change their lives by making them lose their jobs. And this is what I do every day of my life, sensitizing the parents, looking at the poor, and also give them an opportunity to study. Thank you very much, Ken.
Thank you, Lizzy. What a telling story there. Of course, looking at Martyrs Academia as well, where we have so many rogue colleges giving out certificate in 9 months, diploma certificates as well. But she says there's no way you can actually do that. Look for quality, and profit will come automatically. So what is your passion? How tenaciously are you also pursuing your dreams as well, right? We gave you her story. Of course, it's a ballad to Kashmir, so to speak, a story. It doesn't mean that sometimes you can be confined by the resources you do have. So that should not be a stock excuse that, yes, I don't have the capital to start my business. Some, they've even started with 70 shillings. And of course, as I mentioned, she slept on the floor trying to pursue her dream. Now she is at the apex of success as well, running the Nairobi Institute, Business Studies, NIBS as well. And most of you also, some of you also watching this morning are part of this. I can see reactions on Twitter, just to read one or two before we go back to a panelist and discuss as well. Also, our numbers will be up momentarily for you to call in and share your contribution as well. Let's begin with John Gidanga. Yeah, he says, you can say that again. In fact, being apologetic is not a sign of weakness. It's acknowledging that you are not perfect. Also, we have Jacob Abere Mtalala saying, pride before fall, philosophy, opportunity, blindness to service delivery, self-wanting. These are some of the things that make the mighty fall. We have William Opio McCann also talking on pride. Pride comes before a fall. With no emotional intelligence, then your road to downfall is clear. Also, we do have Dr. Wandia. She says Matiang'i did no such thing, yet Professor Dr. Ugutu says Matiang'i did a good job, right? And Dr. Wandia, she's declining to agree with you on that note as well. She doesn't think that he's done a good job as well. Or we do have also Dennis, a volunteer. He says at stake is Kenya's economy when the so-called technocrat starts serving his stomach, allowing scams and corrupt dealings in the system. This is also talking on the cabinet's appointment. And we have drums. It's so sad when one stomach becomes big, almost busting at the seams or at the cost of 45 million Kenyans. Washindwe, right? Then we have Jacob also, Abere Mtalala saying, amazing panelist with worthy topic of the day. Thank you, Jacob. And we do have Ndege Sidwaka. He asked a very probing question. He asked, do you think we have leaders at the top? Do you think we have leaders at the top? Let's maybe Dr. Cesar Muangi will answer that. He's been fairly quiet, of course, waiting for his turn. So, do you think we have leaders at the top? What do we have? Do we have leaders or we have politicians?
Yeah.
And who is a leader anyway?
Do we have leaders at the top? In fact, that is to ask the question, who is a leader? You see, there's a big confusion between being a leader and having a position. And I think that's a confusion that we have in this country.
Yes.
We focus on the position instead of focusing on the being of the person who is in that position, the being of the person in that position. And you cannot separate the position of leadership and the person who is in that position.
Yes.
For a leader to be effective, you need a certain kind of person for that effectiveness to take place. And the bottom line, Debarl, I always say, and I think this is why Kenyans are so frustrated when they ask those kind of questions. Do the people we have serve themselves, or do they serve the public and the common good? I think that is a fundamental question. And I think many people are convinced that there is so much self-interest in the people who have leadership positions that they're no leaders. That's a conclusion that they come to. And it's a very big tragedy for us. And I keep going back in history and saying, let us look at history and say, who are those leaders who really left a legacy and they left their people better off? Those should be our role models. Do we leave our people better off because we are in positions of leadership, because of who we are? I'll give the simple example. Nelson Mandela, undisputably, a great leader.
Yes.
Because he served the common cause of good for his people. He wanted to liberate them from the discrimination that they faced. And he paid a price for that. So he was not serving his own interest.
Yes.
He was serving the common cause.
Right.
Wangari Maathai, our very own. Eventually, she was celebrated with the Nobel Prize. She was fighting for the environment of this country, not for her own interest. So let us not confuse the position and the goal and objective of leadership, which should be for a greater cause beyond your life.
All right, you mentioned spectacular failures and also cases in points that we do have in the country as well. We have in the recent past seen most of very top-notch banks going down the tubes as well, with so many deposits of the customers as well. And we have also the central bank coming also to bail some of these banks as well. But the confidence therein is not still up to scratch as well. So these were people that we know when they're posting their profits, and how the company is performing, we can see at the bottom they're doing good. So do we have people who, sometimes they just put on a facade, it's a fig leaf, but truly that is going down? And we've discussed here even before, where we have cases in points like Enron, we have cases in points here in the country like Nakumatt, yes, but in the long run, we see now Nakumatt is no more. It was the mighty, it has fallen. Dr. Vincent.
I know, even as great as you might become.
Yes, because you mentioned, I like the wrong assumptions. You've mentioned very good telltale signs of, paying attention to details. And I think these are some of the things also Jim Collins is really talking about. Maybe you can highlight on that, sorry.
Yes, so people forget where they came from. And they became great by paying attention to little details, just doing the basics. But then when you get up to those heady heights, you might actually forget how you actually fly by paying attention to the basics. So in the case of Nakumatt, again, they might just forget the basics. They might just keep investing, getting more and more outlets, putting a lot of money in that, not taking care of their creditors. All the basic things that you have to think about. Take care of your creditors. Make sure before you invest you're not over-leveraged. There are all these basic things that people tend to forget. So as you go up there, you have to remember to pay attention to basics. That's what I think is key here.
All right. Let's hear from Maurice. Maurice, I'm trying to see what you talked of greed and self-significance. I can see a lot of people talking about how our leaders, like Keith here, is saying that in our country I cannot see leadership. Keith Peters is saying that in our country I cannot see leadership, just men and women interested to expand their enterprises, and at the expense of suffering majority. Yeah, so, and I think I'll walk over in a moment just to show you the cartoon that Munene had drawn today. Maybe it's a telltale sign when we're talking about deporting people, but we have the posy of goons who are all over in this country who are walking free, scot-free, right? Greedy and self-significance or self-importance. Shed a light on that.
Thank you, Debarl. In my considered view,
yes,
politicians and with it leaders, of different shades,
yes,
whether they be religious, whether they be of political nature, whether they be of business, orientation.
yes, yes.
There are two important things, we could be very careful, at distinguishing. We have one, national strategic interest.
Yes.
And two, personal strategic interest. So as a leader, what is the mark where we're able to differentiate between national strategic interest, that then addresses the collective common good, as opposed to personal strategic interest?
Yes.
In there lies the tragedy of an opportunistic public bureaucracy. If that be, something we can borrow from public choice, understanding. So self-significance and the hubris that goes with it.
Yes.
How do we see it practiced in society? In one word, it is the word impunity.
Impunity.
See that?
Yes.
Which is why we said earlier that I did not choose to be born where I was born. So in metaphysics, I would tell you that is an accident, and I should not belabor thinking about it. But because of the question...
And you believe that in metaphysics, it is an accident that you're born there, right? You don't think God had a purpose? Yeah?
No, it is not the Debarl.
Okay.
I am. Your negating of my being doesn't cancel, my being. I am. I am because I am good. So being as we know it. No, so now the question, you know, that we are addressing on leadership.
Yes.
And no, this hubris thing, you know, why the mighty and how they fall. Politicians are very deliberate. See that? They know. In fact, they are the best in their traditional areas, you know, of training. They have gone on, they have become top bankers, top economists, so that top academics. You know, when they were joining politics, they were at the, you know, very apogee. See that? In their traditional areas, you know, function. So, when they come out into the public to lead, to serve, what is it they are doing? And now that is the challenge we face, you know, particularly in this country, that we cannot differentiate between private enterprise and public enterprise.
Yes.
That is the challenge we have. Yes.
Public enterprise and private enterprise.
Yeah.
Right, and of course you've mentioned the hubris that Jim Collins mentions in the book as well, hubris and the self-entitlement that we do have. And the cartoon that I wanted to show you is, of course, drawn by Munene today. It is how are we also dealing with corruption in our country. You can see there the posy of goons, thumbs up for the Ministry of Immigration. You can see the list of guys there. You know what is happening right now with the immigration deportation of some, activists here in the country as well. And you can see the posy of goons. We have SGR, wad of cash jutting out from their briefcases, NYS, Cons, Afi House, Eurobond, and the list goes on and on. But that is how the mighty fall, where we don't really clamp down on the people who are actually bringing the country down as well, right? These are some of the things that you say, making apologies. And we've had people actually talking. I think you're the one who mentioned this, Vincent, making apologies. Or NYS, it was because there was an accounting error from the system. It was because of, people were fudging accounts and someone gave out the password. So we shuffle blame here and there. Very briefly.
Actually, I'll give credit to the person who said it, because as an academic, I would be plagiarizing if I took credit for it. So Maurice here talked about what he called, in very flowery language, unpalatable data. So you get this data that you don't like, and then you explain it away. You kind of give apologies, or you brush it aside, like you people don't even understand what we're talking about. When instead you should sober up, just step back, pay attention. Whether you like the data or not is not the important thing. It's whether the data is valid. Now, if it is valid, then it's time to do something about it. However much you might find this data hurts you, makes you look bad, the objective is not to look good all the time. The objective is to actually get good things done. So if someone gives you what you might look at as unpalatable data, you don't really like it, it makes you feel bad about yourself, focus on what you can do with the data. Go ahead, do the right thing. And now when everything's working, people will clap their hands again and praise you again and forget that at some point you are embarrassed when you are confronted with this unpalatable data. But we are so hell-hung on trying to look good that we'll even cover up anything that makes us look bad, and we forget what the real objective is. So if our objective is to look good, we will actually fail. That is how you fall.
That is how you fall.
And then before I go, there's this really nice quote I thought I should give you.
Please.
Couldn't live without it. Again, from the same story of the second book of Samuel, chapter 1, verses 19, when David learns that King Saul and Jonathan have died in battle. So I'll just read it. It says, "The illustrious of Israel have been killed upon your mountains. How have the mighty fallen? Saul and Jonathan, swifter than eagles were they, stronger than lions were they. How have the mighty fallen, and the weapons of war failed?" So that's my quote for you.
Fantastic. I love it from the book of Psalms. Yes, some trust in chariots, some trust in horses, but we choose to trust in the name of the Lord. All right, thank you. Let's hear from Lizzy Madoni. Looking for quality and profit. You look for quality and profit will come automatically, right? So we don't pursue the profit, but as long as we are looking for profit first, or for quality, the profit will come automatically. And of course, your story, I wanted to hear a story about, sleeping on the floor. That really touched me. Yes, you didn't tell that story. Yeah.
You have a story that's a bit old. That is when I was initially starting the institution and trying to survive and
Yes,
to get
people
back
love to hear
my
this story.
2 feet again.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you see, I thrive in challenges myself.
Okay.
Whenever I am challenged, that's when I wake up. And I was challenged at one particular time of my life. And that is when I started NIBS. NIBS came up as a way of showing myself, not people out there, but myself, that I can do it. Because I had gone through a very challenged young life, and then I had another phase of good life, and then the good life just crumbled, and I had to start afresh. So what you are, the foundation where you grew up can really help you compete with challenges and actually defeat the challenges that you have. From the time you have the story have grown, NIBS has grown, and it's because I like, if you want to hear my story is I don't need the money that much, because my children are well educated and they have nice jobs, and actually they are working with me. I managed to get them back to work with me, not for me, with me, because I'm arranging after me, what happens to NIBS. Yeah. I'm already organizing myself. Yes. I don't have to write a will. They know that what I have left behind is a platform whereby they can grow and help their kids.
But we've had the incidents as well. Now they begin fighting, right? If you don't write a will and say,
I have. Of course, I have. We have done that. I have done that.
You've apportioned.
In a way that is going to be done.
You said county so and so goes to. Anyway.
No, you see, I am very passionate about land buying, and I always buy plots, even in very remote places.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I have apportioned them what they're supposed to do together and what they can do as individuals.
Thank you. Maybe just to give us 30 seconds as our parting shots. I love the quote that you've quoted from the Bible, smack dab with what Jim Collins, the book is all about, how the mighty fall. You will quote it again for us in closing. Let's hear from Maurice. Yeah, let's start with Dr. Cesar Muangi. Your parting shots.
Yeah, I think what is very clear, and I really appreciate what Lizzy has told us. I mean, fantastic.
Yes.
You don't have to chase the profits; they'll come after.
Yes.
If you do the service.
Yes.
I just want to. It's clear that greatness is really a function of our mindsets, our values, and our principles. Those are enduring issues, as opposed to office, resources, and possibilities based on your particular position.
Yes.
So we need to focus and audit ourselves on what is our mindset towards leadership.
Yes.
What is our values and principles towards leadership? And fundamentally, service is what we should be focused on.
Service.
And leaving a legacy, as she has mentioned, leaving a legacy for the greater good of those we leave behind.
Service.
I think that's my parting shot.
Thank you very much. Maurice.
Thank you so much, Debarl, for the opportunity. I think I'll cut the long chase and paraphrase for your statement from page 80 of that book.
30 seconds.
Yes, I'm paraphrasing it. Recognition and restructuring can create a false sense of what? That we're actually doing something to change our situation.
Yes.
Companies like nations are in the process of reorganizing themselves all the time. But when you begin to respond to data and warning signs with reorganization as a primary strategy, you may jolly well be in denial. So, it is a bit like responding to a severe heart condition or a cancer diagnosis by reorganizing your living room.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Reorganizing your living room. Let's hear from Lizzy, 30 seconds in closing.
Yeah, I think I've talked a lot, 1/4 of what I can tell you people. It's a lot.
And we hope NIBS will not become a university.
No, actually,
I'm trying not to say that you shouldn't be a university.
I'm a university. Let me tell my friends out there who keep on asking
30 seconds, 30 seconds.
30 seconds, we are already a university. We have been inspected up to the last point. Then I was supposed to now denounce the college and call it NIBS University, transfer all the assets of NIBS College to NIBS University. I said no. So as it is, They have the facilities of universities.
Thank you.
They have everything. So
Thank you.
that's what I guess.
Thank you very much. That's what we are afraid of. Everyone, technical colleges, we
Yeah.
don't have tertiary. We're lacking plumbers, carpenters in this country.
Yes.
Right. My favorite verse as we're closing, 30 seconds. You can read it for us again.
Okay,
Right.
I'll read it again.
Thank you.
And my parting advice is humility. Just listen to that feedback. Focus on how great you could be if you kept improving, which means you have to listen to where you're not doing well so that you keep improving. Otherwise, you will be in shock like King David when he heard about his two friends who were so powerful, who had all the weaponry, and yet they fell, which leads me to the quote. So he says, "The illustrious of Israel have been killed upon your mountains. How have the mighty fallen? Saul and Jonathan, swifter than eagles were they, stronger than lions were they. How have the mighty fallen and the weapons of war perished?"